Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm your host, Ed Smith, and today we're going to take a look at a 16-team league that is entitled the Family Business Large Style. This league began the summer of 2020, so this was at the very beginning of my habit, if you will, and some of the notes involved with this league, I guess, that I want to just highlight is that it was at the very beginning of scoring, and even though I do run this league, it is full point PPR, and then tight ends have a half point PPR premium, which gives them a little bit of a boost. But when we start to take a look at the starters, this is where it becomes a very deep league, and also really heavily favors the tight end. And unfortunately, I didn't understand that, so I formed a league. I didn't even understand what scoring I was doing and how deep it really was. So as we go through the starters, you'll see this. And it starts one quarterback, one super flex, two running backs, three receivers, two tight ends, and that's where it gets really tricky. Three flexes for a total of 12 starters, but we take 12 times the 16 teams, and now we've got 120 plus 32, so we got 152 starting players in the four skill positions on an NFL team. We look at the 13 bench spots, the 6 taxi, and the 3 IR gives these rosters 34 spots, and so that comes out to 17 spots per NFL team. And so when you drill that down, that's like taking 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 7 receivers, and 3 tight ends from each NFL team. So think the Texans or think the Lions. When you get to the third quarterback on the Lions, it gets deep. When you get to the third tight end on the Texans, you're getting pretty deep. And so you could say, well, we can get 4 tight ends on a team. Well, you can, and you can get to 4 quarterbacks every once in a while on a team, and you might be able to get to 8 receivers. But as you can tell, there's many spots there. Now, not everybody fills up their IR, not everybody fills up their taxi, but what it does tell you is the waiver wire. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are on the waiver wire. You've got to have the starters to take yourself to the league title. And what you have to avoid is the injury bug, and you also have to have a strong tight end group with 2 starting from each team. That's 32 tight ends start every week. So you do have lower end or tight end 2 on a team players starting because we have 32, and if there's a bye week, you have to navigate somehow through that or take the zeros. So it takes us really deep. It's important to use your bench spots for tight ends and have some maybe long shot tight ends. So I'm just developing this, and so as I built the team, I realized that slowly and surely. And so we'll look at who I have now, and then you're gonna probably tell me that I made some ill-advised trades, but somewhat I had to kick the can down the lane a little bit, because knowing that the tight end room was going to be a critical piece to the future. So this team in the tight end room has Dawson Knox, so it was a good pick. I mean, it was early on we had a good pick, and you'll get to see the draft if you just click on that draft below in the links, and then you also get to see the startup in 2020, the rookie draft in 2020, then the rookie draft in 21, and then you'll see the outline of the rookie draft in 22 all down there in the links. And we'll kind of go through that a little bit, but here in the starting spots that I have right now in the tight end room, Dawson Knox and Noah Gray and Dan Arnold. And then there's Hunter Long and Kyle Granson. So a lot of young tight ends, Arnold being a little bit older, but just kind of coming into his own, and definitely is a reasonable tight end too when he was healthy last year. So it is somebody that can win. But I think all of these guys are outside of the top 5, even though Dawson Knox kind of had a coming out party. It's important to really beef that room and keep going. This year with McBride, I mean, he'll probably go higher in this kind of a league than he normally would. He'll be a first round pick, in this kind of a league. So, that'll be somebody that I may attack with one of my first round picks, there, just because knowing that it is a situation of need. Now, in the quarterback room, I feel really confident in this room that when they're healthy, I have a shot to win any given year. And so that's kind of what I try to do is piece the team along. see how the injuries fall, see what it is, and in a 16-team league, if you start wheeling off 3 or 4 wins in a row in the early part of the year, then you just go for it. If you get 3 losses by comparison, and we're sitting at week 5, right when the buys start, and I'm 0-5 or 1-4, I'm probably going to sell off old assets and keep gaining picks. If at that point I see that we're 5-0, 4-1, or even 3-2, and it looks like we're trending the right direction, like the players are getting better, not getting worse, then I'm probably gonna go for it. And if I see a deal that can be made to acquire a player, then I'm gonna take my shot at that point in a 16-team league if I feel like we're 1 player away. So the quarterback room here, I'm really confident in with Josh Allen and Watson if Watson plays. And then it also has Davis Mills. So there's a couple players there that are starters, and then it has Jimmy G. And so Jimmy G's that exact person that if the team's 5-0, we're going to keep going with him. If the team's 4-1, we're going to keep going with him. If the team's 3-2, then we have a decision to make, and if it's 2-3 or 1-4 or 0-5, he's going to go. I'm going to trade him away at that point to somebody that's going to obviously need a quarterback because we start 32 every week. So you think about the need will definitely be there if I want to move on from him, and the need will be there at the level of a couple first-round picks if he's playing well. So, I'll be looking to jump off of him whenever I can, and I might jump off even at 5-0, 4-1 if Mills is playing well, or something is happening there that I feel like I can cover the buy for Josh Allen and Watson, and they're clicking on all cylinders, or maybe some of my draft picks are coming into their own. It also has Mond, who maybe, Trask, maybe. Brandon Allen basically has Brandon Allen only because he was, when I kind of set this team up for the offseason, Brandon Allen was still in the playoffs, and he was going to the Super Bowl, and he was Joe Burrow's replacement, and so dropping him didn't make a lot of sense when we didn't know if Joe Burrow might have a season-ending injury that is going to, kill 2 or 3 games at the beginning of next season. It's worth having him on the roster. Didn't happen, so we're good. It sounds like Joe Burrow will be good to go for week 1, but I always try to hedge those bets until I don't, until I need the roster spot for somewhere else. And then Mason Rudolph, and again, Rudolph is a guy that I don't think will start for Pittsburgh, even though they say he may. I'm gonna hold him until I know he won't. So there's just no reason for me just to drop him right now. Because what if he's worth a 3rd rounder or 2nd rounder? That's just another piece to the puzzle that I can pull and have. We start to look at the running back room. Very light. I thought it was going to be better than it is. It does start with Akers, and you can see why I didn't do well last year, because obviously Akers as the RB1 is, well, in a 16-team league, that's pretty good. It's not, or it's adequate, I should say. It's not great, and when he was hurt all year, it didn't matter. And then I have Gainwell, Sermon, Jarrett Patterson, and Mekhi Sargent. So the good news about that room is that Akers is the oldest guy. So, and he's going to go into his 3rd year. Their other guys are going to all go into their 2nd year. Now, the downside to that group is that none of them have a bell cow role, or even a starting role, or even a 1A or 1B role. So, we don't know what they really are, but I don't really have anything to move on from them yet. So, it's a position that hopefully this year I'll get a couple running backs to add to that room, but I feel like it's a couple running backs away, and we'll see what the draft holds and where it goes. The receiver room is really also very young, but there's not much there either. Gabe Davis, he kind of had a coming out party, but the concern I have with Gabe Davis is twofold. One is that Dawson Knox is on the team, and Josh Allen, so I feel like I'm a total Buffalo Bill, so I'll go as they go, which is sort of scary. I have Josh Palmer, so that's kind of relative of whether Mike Williams returns or doesn't. Brian Edwards, that has to do with a new coach, and we'll see how he's used and see how Derek Carr wants to throw to him if he's still the quarterback. Mikael Hardman, the only good thing about him is he's 23, and we just don't know. Maybe one of these days, maybe he's a 3rd-year option, or a 4th-year player, that where he actually has a coming out party a little bit late, but he is only 23, and that's a good sign for him. And then we have Noah Brown and Denami Brown, and those are both guys that are young players in their own right, and we don't really know what they are, but probably, if we were going to bet, but probably not very much, I think. As we kick the wheel off to the future just to kind of have an idea of where this team goes is next year it has 2 first round picks and 5 seconds, 4 thirds, and then in 2024 it has 2 firsts and 2 seconds, and then the rest of the draft is the normal picks. And so it does have some kick the can to the 2023 draft appeal a little bit. So if this team in year number 3 doesn't start to win, I'm not going to panic like I would in most 12-team leagues where I feel like they have to win in the first 3 years, or we need to really look at the blueprint. When you start to get these 14 and 16 team leagues, I get a little bit more patient with the team and say, because we're trying to get to a point where we're 3x on our money each year, so that means we have to get to 30x over 10 years to triple the money. I feel like it could take till year 4 to start really getting competitive, and because somewhat, so not only do we have to win and be in the top 8 or top 7, I think this team is going to translate, our league is going to translate to top 7 making the playoffs. But that means that we have to wait for 9 teams to become bad, if you will. And so, there's no real advantage to being just midline. So you kind of want to go from really bad to really good in one swift swoop. Now, I don't ever tank. So I guess that's an important distinction. I don't care if the team loses, but I always try to win. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I'm always trying to win because I'm just competitive and want to win. But because I think winning can be elusive, and so I feel like I've won championships with not my best teams, and I've lost, missed out on the playoffs with some of my better teams. So I guess I try to take the shot when it's available, and I just keep analyzing as we go. At the week 5 point, right before the buys, I take a look at every team and say, okay, what are they? Can they go? Can they not? And then I take a look at them at week 8, week 10, somewhere in that. I have too many teams to look at them all in 1 week there, but I take a peek at, okay, how are we doing from week 5? I try to analyze the good teams after week 8. If I did it after 5 and I think they're going to go, I try to get right back into them in week 8 and see, okay, where did they go? What happened in the last 3 weeks? How are we doing? Are we progressing in the right direction? And then the teams that I didn't think were very good, I usually start to look at them at week 10 because now we're getting close to the trade deadline and it's time to make moves with players and kind of kick the can down, as I say, towards the next year. And so that's what I tend to do is if I feel like there's somebody I have a value that I can really maximize value, I try to maneuver that player into more lottery tickets, if you will, and try to get high-end lottery tickets if I can to really take that team to the next level. Some players that I have really coming up here in this, or some draft picks coming up in this league, just to kind of give you an idea of where I see the team going. It does have 5 first-round picks. Number 2, number 4, number 5, number 12, number 15. And as you heard me allude to, I do think that McBride might be in that 12 to 15, one of those kind of spots. And 2, 4, and 5 are going to be quarterbacks and running backs, kinds of spots probably, unless, something changes in the receiver room. And maybe the 12 and 15 will be receivers, as well. So there's going to be I feel like there's some good receivers in the top 20 picks. Like as I look over, I'll have a draft board of 30. And when I look at the top, the second round picks that this team has, it's got a boatload. So, I said the 2, 4, 5, 12, and 15, but then in the second round, numbers 17, 18, 20, 21, 23, 28, 31. And so, yeah, that 31 is kind of outside of that top 30, but I feel like that's going to be enough to be able to really, really control the draft at that point, with, what is that, 7 and 5, 12 of the top 31 picks. And so that's not quite half, but it's a lot of that draft at 15 other owners. I should be able to kick the can and get, move some of those picks around to increase the 2023 draft class if I don't feel like I'm getting the value in the running back and receiver rooms to take a shot at it. I am concerned about the tight end room. I think it's a little bit light unless we find out that Gesicki's gone and Long's going to be the starter, and we find out that Granson's going to be the starter. Then I might have a different idea, and because I think Gray is always going to be an afterthought until Kelsey moves on. So I really think you need to have three starting tight ends in this kind of a league to make a reasonable run, and be able to throw one of those in even in the flex spot just to make it all work. So I'm always focused on that as far as that goes, and really taking a strong angle as far as that goes with that. So taking a look at some of how this team is began, and some of the, I guess, the things that I'm proud of in the draft. So we look back at 2020 and the beginning of this draft. At the 113, I was able to take Josh Allen, and you might say, well, that isn't that good, but I took Josh Allen as the seventh quarterback off the board. So guys like Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson and Prescott and Murray and Lamar and Mahomes all went ahead of him, and that probably was about right back then. And then before I made the pick at the 2-4 spot, which everybody was going to laugh about, three more quarterbacks came off the board, so we were 10 in, and that they were Wentz, Mayfield, and Matt Ryan. So they came off the board, and then I made the big jump and went Drew Lock, which became nothing, right? And so then I didn't pick again because we're in a 16-team league, and I have to wait till 313 to pick, and I came back and got A.J. Brown to really solidify the team and the receiver. And you're like, well, where did he get to? Your receivers aren't good. Well, I kicked that can down and got 3 first-round picks for him, in the future. And so that felt like a good move, because I felt like the chance of getting Jamar Chase if I have 3 darts to throw, was pretty high. I really did. I thought, you know what, I have a good shot at getting one Jamar Chase out of the next 3 drafts, and or better. So it's worth me knowing that I can't win with that Drew Lock pick. I mean, you quickly know that, oh, geez, that's not going to work. Once we started the 2020 season, and he looked terrible. We started to say, okay, and it was just time to get off of A.J. Brown, and I wouldn't be opposed to go and getting him now, buying him back on the cheap. Like, I think I might be able to buy him, come the draft, and get him back for 1 first round. So sell him for 3, buy him for 1. Like that kind of thing. Like that's a kind of a mover that makes some sense in my mind. So then in the 4th round, I took David Carr, or Derek Carr, I should say, and so moved him on for some other pieces, and then James Conner, moved him on for some other pieces. Hawkinson, moved him on for other pieces. These are now we're down to the 6th round, and then I laughed because Slayton was my 7th round pick, and actually Slayton looked good the first game of last year, if you remember, in the 2020 season. Actually, that looked like a hero pick, but the guys I'm picking, Slayton, ahead of are guys like Eric Ebron, and so I mean, they're Curtis Samuel. It wasn't like I was reaching Paris Campbell. I'm looking over like guys that are going around the same round, so it isn't guys like crazy. But then I came back with Dawson Knox in the 8th round, and if we look down this list, the rest of these guys I don't even have on the team anymore. Like, they're just gone, because they once you get into this deep league, I've just had to recycle the league and recycle the teams to get where I was trying to go. Now, as this team kind of came about, I traded away in the rookie draft that year. I did trade away the picks to again kick the can down the road, because I saw that it didn't come out the way I wanted, and I knew I was going to have to just wait to be patient, because again, finishing in 7th place or in 9th place doesn't do us any good. So it was time to finish near the end, and so I traded away the 1st and 2nd round pick, and basically traded them for other more picks down the line, as that's how I got so many picks. Now, those picks were pretty good. Like, it became Jonathan Taylor and Hamler, and we didn't know that they were going to be good. I mean, I think I suspected, but didn't know. And you get 3 first-round picks. We'll see what I ended up getting for Taylor at some point once we get to the 2024 season and see what it became. But I'm venturing to bet that you start having those kind of things, and I know that one of the picks that I got for Taylor was what became Trey Lance, who then I moved for more first-round picks, and so all of a sudden, if I end up with 6 first-round picks for Jonathan Taylor, that feels like a pretty good dart throw, and it was something like that when I did the chronological order, of those picks. So I mean, in theory, you're like, oh, where the hell did Jonathan Taylor and where did Trey Lance get to? But wouldn't have had both of them. Let's start with that. And then as we just kind of kept kicking it down, saying can't win, can't win, can't win, and now we'll come back this year with those 5 first-round picks and with those, 11 top 31 picks, it makes for, a team that has a chance to, if we can get 8 starters out of those 11 31. Maybe we can only get 7 starters, but 7 starters out of those 12 starting spots will change the whole dynamic of the team. So, we'll see how those rookies become, but I guess I'm just looking at sheer numbers. If I get 5 starters, then the team wins next year. If I get 7 starters, the team probably wins this year. And so that's what we'll look for in this team, and what kind of how I build it and what we'll look to do. I mean, definitely we'll make the list for this league. We'll probably have a list closer to 60. But that top 30 will be what is a script, and I'm guessing that 31st pick will be from that top 30 list. So somebody's going to venture outside of my top 30 list and pick something in there in those 30 picks. So I'll probably get all 11 players off that top 30 list, and then I'll be able to follow that up in the 3rd and 4th round and 5th round with guys that I like in years past. I liked Khalil Herbert, and I like Jared Patterson, and you'll see my teams that have just loaded with those kind of guys because they're just guys I like, and I just threw darts at them. And then there's guys like Jake Luton that I liked in other years, and he became nothing. He was a 0. And I'm still refining that. I feel like late quarterbacks don't ever Dak Prescott are really tough to come by. And so I'm learning that the dart throws in the later rounds, running backs seem to come out of nowhere. Like Khalil Herbert actually was a useful piece in my dynasty leagues this past year. Eli Mitchell, who I didn't get, he wasn't a guy I was targeting. It wasn't like one of my fascinations. Wasn't a useful piece, but the year before, James Robinson was a useful piece, and so we had James Robinson, we had Eli Mitchell. And it seems like we kind of get one of those out of the 3rd and 4th round, and then this year we also had Khalil Herbert. So I feel like in the year before that we had guys like Terry McLaurin. The people were pulling out of late rounds, and so just kind of watching those types of things, and even Jalen Hurts, was a late 2nd, early 3rd in some cases. I am kind of learning those tendencies and watching them and charting them and just trying to have as many shots at Jalen Hurts as I can, and that way I'll get some right, I'll get some wrong. I mean, I still remember drafting Devin Asiasi. I had like 8 million of him, and Eno Benjamin had 8 million of him, and those guys didn't pan out. But you really jump up and down and get excited when you have James Robinson. I think I got 34 of them or something crazy, 34 shares of James Robinson that year. And it looked like a hero because that guy was, I was activating him from every taxi squad known to man and taking shots everywhere I could. And so, that was a success story. And so then this year, somebody else got lucky with, or, got fortune, I guess I should say, with Eli Mitchell because they were grabbing him everywhere, and, that was their guy. So that's kind of how I kind of think through the draft, and you'll see more of this as we outline other teams. But thank you for checking out the 16-team format, real deep. And encourage you to hit the like button, get the notifications for when these videos drop. It should drop every day at 7 a.m. East Coast time, and then put in the comments what you think of the team. Am I on in my assessment of this team that if we can get 7 starters, we might get a win here, or if we can get 5 starters, then we have to wait a year, and maybe you think the blueprint just stinks and it's just never going to win. I heard that in one of the chats. This league has some orphans in it, and we're going to do a disbursement draft to kind of get those 3 spots filled. And somebody said, well, we'll never win this league. And I'm thinking, well, anytime I have Josh Allen and Deshaun Watson as my 2 quarterbacks, I think I've got a reasonable shot. I was looking at their age at 26, and I'm like, so if I win 2 years from now when they're both 28, and then we win their 28, 29, and 30th year, we get 3 wins in a row and they're just 30. Like, does that make sense? Like, is that a probability? And you might not say it's guaranteed, but it feels like it's not an insurmountable task to have a 30-year-old quarterback, a 29-year-old, and a 28-year-old quarterback go take me 2 wins, and especially when one of them might be arguably one of the better, at least the top three. Like, and those two probably are top five quarterbacks in a 16-team league. You have two of the top five. Like, I mean, you don't need a ton else. Like, you can really win with the highest scoring point position. You have two of the top five in a 16-team league. Like, only one other team has a mathematical probability of having that, right? So if you have Mahomes and Herbert, I guess, I mean, you just mathematically don't have the probability of being able to pull that off. And so, it just feels like we're putting it in a situation, and that even allows for those guys to get hurt or get suspended or whatever the heck life treats them. And so I will say that if Deshaun Watson doesn't play next year, then this team is a little bit further away. And I felt like it was something that made sense. I bought him last year in the off season, so after the crazy stuff started happening, and I did buy him for a first round pick, but I felt like it was worth kicking the can down, because I felt like the team was still a year away from winning. So if he didn't play this year, which he didn't, it wasn't going to be the end of the world, and I just would get a number 2 pick overall. Having him on the roster, like, it made sense to kick the can down and get it. And I think actually how it came up was, I think I ended up trading the Trey Lance pick for Deshaun Watson plus a first. So Trey Lance got me. So if we start to look back to the JT plan, I basically ended up with 4 first round picks, I think, for Jonathan Taylor plus Deshaun Watson. So it feels like that, and then seconds and thirds and other stuff too, but it feels like that was one of those hauls, if you will. And I hope that Jonathan Taylor's still playing football in 3 years, and he probably will be at age 26, but it'll be nearer the end of his curve of playing successful football when I'm trying to win. And so really having running backs that are just coming into the league now makes more sense. And like Cam Akers, Jonathan Taylor will be the older guys at that time. And not that I wouldn't love to have Jonathan Taylor, but the combination of all the other things made Jonathan Taylor kind of a luxury item, luxury car when I'm driving the Yugo right now, just trying to build the building blocks. And so, yes, if I had to do over again, I could trade Jonathan Taylor for more today than I could have back then on draft day. But if it was, a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just picked right around him, it would have been better to trade him on draft day than today, because his value was a good bit better. So, I try not to time the market as much as I just try to get value when the hype is created. And back then on draft day, there was hype around Jonathan Taylor, just like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and it was time to sell hype, and that hype became news, which I try to buy news, sell hype, and I did sell the hype, and it did become news, and so then that owner's probably pretty happy with his outcome too. So that kind of makes future trading partners, if you will, so that's always something good as well. So that's the breakdown of the 16-team family business large style league, and just kind of some of my thoughts on that and where we see it go. And it'll be fun to check in with this team next year and see how it did, and maybe even after the draft, and see how we think it did as well. So excited to break down another team tomorrow, and look forward to the comments and all the questions that maybe arise, and maybe some of the statements that tell me how far off I am from analyzing this team correctly. So thanks for joining me, and have a great afternoon.